Hello, everyone, and welcome to Convos from the Couch by Lifestance Health. I'm Leanza, and I'm delighted to talk with Haley Lafferty today from our Colorado Springs office on the topic of women's empowerment in honor of International Women's Day. So welcome, Haley. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I am so excited to be talking about this subject with you.
As am I, for sure. So I know we're going to have a great episode. Let's jump in. Tell us a little about yourself and your interest in women's empowerment.
Yeah, I am a licensed clinical social worker here in Colorado Springs. I co-led very early on in my social work career a women's group. And ever since then, I have been very drawn and hyped about women's empowerment and giving them the voice that they deserve.
For sure, I agree. And, just talk a little bit more about what International Women's Day is. It's a global day celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. It's also a day that marks a call to action for accelerating women's equality. So it's a great episode to honor this for sure. So kind of starting our conversation, how can women empower themselves more in their day-to-day lives?
Yeah, I think that empowerment is very aligned and correlated with self-growth and self-acceptance and really aligning with what fits best with you, what speaks to you. I think women have been shown to adapt to other people's needs and expectations. Yeah. And I think when we start to look inward and align with what we see best for ourselves, that's where the empowerment kind of blooms.
I love that answer. That's so key when we look into ourselves. I think we often see women give to others, and then in the process they lose themselves. Mm-hmm. So it's really great to look inward and looking at that as the key of empowering yourself. I know there's some other things that will happen with women where we'll either self-sabotage or feel like we're imposters. Let's talk a little bit about that. Let's actually start with self-sabotaging. Can you tell us a little bit what that is and how to help women navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, right before we started recording this, I was mentioning how I am self-sabotaging. So it's definitely something that I think a lot of people struggle with, especially women. And it is a tough thing to work through. And I think ultimately leaning on your support system, allowing that support system to remind you of who you are. And I think also asking yourself, why am I talking myself out of this opportunity? Is it that maybe I'm pushing myself too far? Maybe I should be listening to this, or maybe this feels uncomfortable. Maybe I do need to push a little bit and explore a new area about myself. So I think again, turning inward and asking yourself questions and trying to figure out what is the purpose or the intention behind this self-sabotaging.
And I like that you said, it could go either way of maybe it is time to push yourself out of your comfort zone, or maybe just looking inward and be like, okay, maybe there is a reason that I maybe don't move forward with this, just really tuning into yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe the experience is reminding you of a past experience that didn't go well. And maybe there's needs to be some processing there too of what did that look like for me? What's different now? Is anything different? So really just asking yourself questions.
And I think, piggybacking on the imposter syndrome of feeling like we're not good enough, even though we might hold the credentials, hold the knowledge, we still might second guess ourselves. So I'm guessing you're saying that's also looking into what's that about? Why are we doing that? Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. And something that I mentioned to my clients too is there evidence for this thought? And a lot of times you'll find that there isn't. And that's okay too. No matter what, your feelings are valid. But if there is no evidence for that thought, digging a little bit deeper, maybe it is imposter syndrome. Maybe it is self-sabotaging. And if there is evidence for that thought, then exploring that.
And if there's evidence for it, is there a part of it reframing the thought differently, or how do you navigate just as you're going deeper with the thoughts? What can maybe some women tell themselves?
Yeah, Yeah, I think that correlates a lot with self-talk. What are we telling ourselves when a new opportunity arises? Are we telling ourselves we're incapable or we're not smart enough or someone else deserves it over us?
Mm.
And is that really fact? Why don't you deserve this opportunity? And really empowering yourself to identify reasons why you are deserving.
Hmm. Which also makes me think of one of the things we made note early on as we were talking was just like how, women really need to look into themselves for empowerment and how we tend to give and give and give, which makes me think of boundaries. Let's talk a little bit about that. Why are establishing boundaries so important for us?
I am huge into boundaries. I think that they are super challenging to implement. And I think a primary thing about boundaries is identifying what is it that you need or want. And that seems to be the biggest barrier there. And I think the more that we reflect on our relationships and we turn inward and we start to wonder, okay, do I have resentment towards certain things in my life? And how can I empower myself to take control of that situation and implement a boundary so that I can stay emotionally safe in that situation?
Hmm. Another way that I look at boundaries of knowing where we end and somebody else begins too, of that boundary there and I don't think we often look at it that way as boundaries of like, where do I end and where does someone begin? I think boundaries are important for ourselves, for our relationships, all sorts of things. So I think it is so key that we're bringing this up for sure. So,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
you mentioned earlier about your women's empowerment group. Can you tell us a little bit more about that group?
Yeah, so I am starting a women's empowerment group here at Life Stance. It is going to be starting this month. And so, really, to just give women the opportunity to connect. And I think there's so much power in shared experience while holding that unique vulnerability in your own personal story.
Mm,
And yeah, so just giving women the opportunity to connect in this time of a pandemic where isolation is even higher
yeah.
and having that support system support you on a deeper and more intimate level. You know, having women in your corner to say, oh my gosh, like I noticed you just put in that boundary, or I'm noticing you walk into the room and you can tell that you're glowing and you feel more confident. I
Mm.
think that that is so motivating and so uplifting.
I agree. Even like women being role models for other women and lifting each other up for sure. Were
Yeah.
there any specific role models or women that you looked up to in your own life?
Yeah, I think I really feel like my friendships, my close circle of people are the ones that I lean on. I mean,
Mm.
this podcast I'll reference again, immediately after reaching out, I contacted my friends and I was like, I don't think I can do this. Like I don't know anything. I can't talk about anything. And so just to have your someone in your corner to be like, no, but you can. You can do
Right.
this. And kind of put you in check. And that's another really big pull for the women's group also is to have those designated people in your corner.
Yeah. I think they help us talk ourselves into things as opposed to what we might do with our self-talk is talking ourselves out of things. So I think it's helpful to have a pep talk that comes from our friends or close loved ones, but also that we are pep talking ourselves up too, help kind of fight against that imposter syndrome or self-sabotage and stuff like that. Easier
Yeah,
said than done though, right? Again, one of those things that if you're not used to doing that, it's not that easy to do. It's a process of practicing to do that, talking yourself into something and out of something for sure.
yeah, absolutely. And I think you bring up a really good point too of success can look different to different people. And even if you're making tiny, tiny changes, it's still a success and you're still breaking that pattern. And even recognizing, oh, wait, I am self sabotaging, even if you were to continue self sabotaging, at least you're gaining that insight in the process of it all.
For sure. Any other takeaways you'd like to share about women's empowerment?
No, I mean, I love uplifting women. I love seeing the growth and the change in a therapy setting of, a woman just identifying her own boundaries. There's been times where I'll have a client come in and they put in a boundary about something that we've never even talked about. It's the self-growth and the self-reflection that they were like, you know what, I'm not okay with this and I can change it. And it's a really beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you 100%, for sure. So,
yeah.
So Haley, I'm so glad you kind of worked yourself through your own imposter syndrome, because you are amazing and you are just so amazing in what you shared with us today, and definitely our theme of lifting up women. So I appreciate you and your knowledge that you shared with us today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.